Hi, everybody. This is Saad. You've probably heard by now that the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk has been caught. He's I think, 22-year-old Utah uh, resident who's a university student who apparently got a scholarship to attend, a full scholarship financial ride. And so he comes from apparently a good background and so on. So it's not as though there's something intrinsically, disastrous in his background that could explain why this happened. Not that, you know, anything could justify what happened to Charlie. But what I wanted to spend time today is talk about what I think should happen in terms of the opportunity to study parasitized mind. So when you think back of forensic psychiatry and forensic psychology, which by the way was an area that I had seriously thought about going into at one point, and I discuss why I didn't in the happiness book. What you often have are these experts who will interview, for example, serial killers to really get an academic understanding of what made them do the things that they do. Is it what percentage of it is due to nature? What percentage is due to nurture? Are you born a serial killer? Are there any mitigating factors in your childhood that could have caused this, and so on and so forth? And so there's real value in trying to understand, what are the dark forces that compel a serial killer to become a serial killer. And the classic example that I'm thinking about in terms of an interview, excuse me, is the Iceman tapes, where Dr. Park Dietz, who is arguably the most famous forensic psychiatrist in the United States, he's worked on many famous cases, and I briefly discuss him in my forthcoming book, Suicidal Empathy, where I talk about how psychopaths, have a lack of empathy, and the interaction between the Iceman and Park Dietz is really just illuminating, because you really see right there in front of you what happens to a human being when they are completely bereft of remorse, of empathy, of a sense, a conscience. Because at one point, the Iceman is, sorry, I have a bit of a cold, so that's why you're hearing me, coughing and so on. The Iceman is explaining that, yeah, when he was younger, he would, torture puppies and so on. And so Park Dietz asks him, well, how did that make you feel? And the Iceman is like surprised by this question. Well, what do you mean, how did it make me feel? Nothing. Because he wasn't able to put himself in the mind of the psychiatrist, who would very reasonably be asking, hey, did you feel any remorse? Did you feel any disgust? Did you feel any aversion? And basically, the killer said, I felt nothing. So now let's move it to the assassin, the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk. What I would want to see, and I'm willing to volunteer for that role, I would want to see a academic study of the process by which this kid's mind was parasitized. So in the same way, for example, where in psychology of decision making, if you want to study what are the cognitive processes by which someone is coming to a decision, there's what's called the eye tracking methodology, where you literally can track a person's eyes, how they're going through an informational display board or how they're going through a website. And actually, my former doctoral supervisor, Jay Russo, who's a cognitive psychologist and mathematical psychologist by training, has written papers on the eye tracking methodology. And so here you are literally breaking down at the granular level. How did you make a decision? What were the exact pieces of information that you looked at, and in which order? So I would want that kind of analysis, but in terms of the parasitology of this alleged assassin's mind. How did you, what were the exact steps, the exact idea pathogens that parasitized your mind, that made you think that here I am, a 22-year-old kid, good background, I'm getting a full scholarship to university, I've got my whole life ahead of me, but the best decision that I could come up with moving forward on that fateful day 2 days ago is to go and assassinate a lovely human being with whom you may disagree on some points, but in a free society, all he's saying is, hey, let's talk. Well, that 22-year-old assassin, his mind was disordered. It was disordered in a way whereby he thought by him doing this, he's actually doing a great thing, right? As I keep repeating to people, and I'll get someone like Elon Musk fully agreeing, I always say, and remember again those words, there is nothing in nature that is more dangerous than a parasitized mind. All the great calamities of history are because someone had a bad idea, right? Hitler thought, hey, there is a problem in the world. That problem is the Jews. If I come along now and institute a mechanism whereby we eradicate that problem, then hey, the world would be a better place. Okay? And so this 22-year-old got to where he got because of an orgiastic debauchery of parasitic thinking. And so I really hope that as they sit and try to understand, why he did what he did, that they really focus on that specific aspect. It's not just about, were you abused as a child? Did your daddy hug you enough or not hug you enough? Those are sort of the typical things that you look for. No. I want to understand. I want to have a neuronal tracking of what led you to be the parasitized degenerate that you are. Those are my first thoughts. I wish you all a great weekend. Shabbat shalom to everybody.